Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to England, and that means of course that we're going to have a look at yet another of the beers that was very kindly sent to me by my good friend Adam over at the Mersey Beers channel. So a huge thank you to him for making this one possible. Do make sure you go and check out the link to his channel in the video description below. He's just getting it up and running, having had his internet upgraded, and he's going to be doing a lot of different beer themed live streams if you like. So it's going to be very interesting to see how his channel develops over the next little while, and fingers crossed I can find some time to contribute to that as well. The next kind of 7 or 8 months for me is going to be incredibly busy, but I do hope that I can get on Adam's channel a little bit and contribute to that. That will be very, very nice to do actually, and he's a great guy as well, really nice guy who really knows his stuff about beer. So as I said, do make sure you give him a subscribe, and you'll find the link to his channel in the video description below. So for this review then, we're actually going to have a look at a beer that some might consider a staple, and I have had something from this brewery before, so it will be nice to return to them, but this is one of the beers that I've been told I really need to have a review of on the channel, so fingers crossed it's a good one. For this review then, we are going to go to Manchester, and we're having a look at my second beer from Manchester Marble Brewing Company. So this beer is called Metric, but it has previously been known as Pint. It comes in at 3.9% ABV, and this one apparently is an English bitter, but it does have New World hops in it, so it should be a really interesting one. Now, as I've told you before, when it comes to English beer, I am not the greatest fan of English bitters, and I don't know if the reason that Adam sent me this one is to try and maybe, you know, convince me otherwise, and I'm open to that of course, but the best English bitters that I've had have actually been brewed in Sweden. The one from Nynäshamn Brewery, and also the one from which was the Bideru bitter, and also the Örebro bitter as well from Närke Kulturbryggeri. So yeah, those are the two best English style bitters that I've had, come to think of it, so I'm really curious to see whether this one can live up to those. The English bitters that I've had before just really haven't taken my fancy, to be honest with you. I've always found them very, very grainy, and for me when it comes to English traditional beer, it's always, for me it's more about the porters and the stouts. Those are the styles of beers that I really like, along with the brown ales as well. I've never been such a great fan of the lighter English beers, if that makes sense. So I'm really curious to see whether this one can convince me otherwise, and as I say, I wonder if that is the reason that Adam sent me this one, but it could well just be that this is a kind of staple beer that these guys do. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. And again, a massive thank you to Adam for making this review possible. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Marble Brewing Company before, or Manchester Marble Brewing Company I guess I should say. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Manchester Marble Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Marble Brewing, as the name kind of tells you, and as I've told you already, are based in Manchester, and this brewery was founded back in 1997 by Jan Rogers. So the brewery was originally based in the Marble Arch Inn, and their first brew kit that they had was a very small 5-barrel system that was installed by Brendan Dobbin, who was involved at West Coast Brewing Company, and apparently for quite a number of years it was on display behind the glass windows, and I'm not sure if you can still see it actually. When I was in Manchester with the English beer tubers and Paul Romeli from PA Brew News in the States, I'm pretty sure we actually did go and have a look at it. I think they were using it to brew very small pilot batch beers actually, so I'm pretty sure that little 5-barrel kit is still in there. I need to get back to Manchester and film a few kind of out and about videos with Peter and Adam and the guys like that. That would be really fun to do. But this pub itself the Marble Arch Inn, is famous for its ceramic interior, and apparently the sloping floor follows the line of the hill outside, which I didn't realise at the time. But the building was built back in 1888, and it's in the Ancoats area of the city, which is kind of to the north-ish, northwest-ish, if I remember rightly, of the city centre. But this is a former industrial area, and this building became a Grade 2 listed building back in 1998. But prior to that, in 1984, it was bought by John Worthington, who was a local camera member, and I think he kind of saved it from being demolished, actually, if I remember rightly. But since 2000, these guys have also been known for producing their beers, and their vegetarian beers at that. And in 2009, they expanded to use a 12-barrel kit, and they did this in a larger brewery just down the road in Williamson Street. And this gave them a capacity of around 3,000 hectolitres per year, from what I understand. But these days, they now have a much larger production brewery in Salford, out to the west of Manchester, and they've got a tap room there as well, which has 9 taps, from what I understand. But they also have 2 other pubs. This is the Marble Beer House in Chorlton-cum-Hardy, and they also have 57 Thomas Square, or 57 Thomas Street in the northern quarter of the city as well. But these guys have produced a hell of a lot of beers over the years. When I was looking at it on Untappd, they had well over 150 different kind of beers, actually. So yeah, a very, very prolific brewery, and it's quite nice to see that they've kind of survived for so long as a brew pub, but now they are starting to produce more beers and get them out there a little bit more. From what I gather, you can get some of these cans in the likes of Valhalla's Goat in Glasgow, actually, and that's you know, compared to what used to be the case with Marble Brewing Company, that is a massive difference. You know, they've scaled up a hell of a lot, actually, with this new production facility. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Manchester Marble Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website in the video description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. And yeah, definitely nice to feature these guys here on the channel once again. I guess you could probably call these guys the, you know, the old boys, if you like, of the Manchester craft beer scene. It's definitely pretty damn cool, actually. So yeah, this one I think should be a very interesting beer, and again, thank you to Adam for making this review possible. So yeah, let's just take a little look at the artwork before we open it up. As you can see, it is quite you know, it's quite straightforward, actually. A lot of the core, or pretty much all of the core range beers that you'll find from Marble have this kind of artwork, and you'll see this on the taps when you go in, or I should say the pool taps, I guess we can say, from when you go into the Marble Arch Inn and stuff. I would recommend that you go there if you get the chance. But yeah, this one, I think the artwork on this is pretty nice. It is pretty straightforward. But like I said, this beer used to be known as Pint, and apparently it was until a couple of years ago. They've been producing this beer for absolutely years, and then all of a sudden the council got one complaint, and the fact that this beer is sold in 500ml cans, half-litre cans, rather than 568ml Imperial English pint cans, is what caused this. And the brewery said, well, basically we don't have we're only a small brewery, we don't have the legal resources and all this to kind of fight it. They just renamed it metric. But I'm not sure if on cask they still sell it as pint. I'm honestly not sure about that. But yeah, 3.9% English bitter, this one. And it's hopped with a few different New World hops. So I took down a list of the hops here. So this one is hopped with Lemon Drop, Nelson Sauvin, Dr. Rudy, and Citra, and it's got a malt base of extra pale, Munich and Carapils, and the yeast that they use in this is a house marble yeast. So as we know, Nelson Sauvin is that big kind of white, green grapey beast from New Zealand. Citra we know is a nice kind of mango one, a little bit of lemon, lime in there and stuff like that as well, but mainly a nice big mango hop. Lemon Drop is an American one that's got a bit of melon and obviously mainly lemon in it as well, and that's a very nice hop that I've had a couple of times. But the one that I hadn't heard of was Dr. Rudy. So this is a New Zealand hop. Apparently it has between 10 to 12% alpha acid. It was first released back in 1976, and it's known for its grassy, piney and citrusy kind kind of characteristics. It's mainly used as a bittering hop apparently, so I had to do a little bit of research on that one before we got the beer ready for its tasting and stuff. But yeah, that's all you need to know about the beer itself. Half-litre can, like I said, so not a pint. But yeah, it says on the back here, get yourself a pint, but get it in a metric measure. Our 3.9% session ale was brewed with all pale malt bill with a blend of so they must have changed this. So it's got a blend of modern exciting hops, and our benchmark beer promises a burst of zesty aromas, uplifting grapefruit flavours, and a subtle lemongrass finish. Store upright and cool, pour slowly to leave any sediment in the can. So yeah, kind of interesting that. It's strange that though, because it did say on the website when I was researching the hops and malts and things, as we always do, it did say that it had carapils and Munich malts in it as well. So it's interesting that it says here it's got all pale, because that would imply that it is only a pale malt base in this. But yeah, half-litre can this, 3.9% ABV, English bitter. Let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. It got a little bit excited, but not too much. Didn't get overly excited. So yeah, let's get it out and into the glass and we'll see how we go. Very curious about this. I have to say, when they're listing it on their website as a bitter, but I was really under the impression that this was like a sort of session IPA, pale ale type beer. So I'm curious to see what it has in store for us. I mean, if it's pale malt and it's got a bit of carapils and Munich and stuff in it, then I would expect more of a kind of session, sort of session type IPA. Especially, we say session because it is 3.9%, but 3.9% is more of a kind of traditional English strength, to be honest with you. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely kind of bright yellow colour. If we shine the light through this, it does have a degree of haze to it, which is quite nice, but definitely nowhere near as hazy and soupy and gloopy as you're going to get from some of these New England IPAs these days. You could see when we poured the beer there was about a quarter finger of a frothy white head on this one. It's just faded away to be a very kind of thin layer, and there is a wee bit of a kind of tufty, there's a little bit of a kind of how do you say, just a little kind of island, if you like, of froth there on the top, but that's faded away to be pretty much nothing. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but overall it does look, pretty calm. It does just look like a session IPA or something, this. I would have always thought that English bitters were a bit kind of darker and things than this, but yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Very curious about this, I have to say. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't smell like an IPA, we'll say that straight away. And the thing that's going to affect this the most probably is going to be the yeast, because it's a Marble House yeast that they have. So maybe that's what makes it more of an English bitter than a pale ale or something like that, as it could be. So yeah, straight away with this one, you do have a nice kind of white bready base to this one. You can pick up a little bit of a biscuity note. There is a wee bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity quality there. There's nothing like a rich, a kind of straight up caramel there. So yeah, white bready base to it, a little bit of a graininess in there, and you've got a nice little bit of smoothness as well. But yeah, you do get a few kind of sort of English malty grainy type notes out of this. I've always found that the English beers were more grainy than the Germans or the Belgian ones, and the Czech ones are obviously more bready as well. But yeah, you really do get a little bit of that kind of almost slightly woody, grainy character out of this one that you would expect of an English bitter. I do reckon that's down to the yeast rather than the malts that are in this, but in fairness, if it is English produced malt, I've always found those not quite as smooth as the German ones. So yeah, it's an interesting point to make there. I can't remember what the name of the big maltery is in England, the one that produces the Maris Otter and everything like that. Maris Otter's a beautiful malt, incidentally. I really like that one. But the traditional Scottish beers that we have were always a bit more kind of brown sugary, whereas the English ones were a bit more kind of grainy and bready, if you like, in my experience. We had the Shilling series in Scotland, the English had the bitters, the pale ales, and all of these kind of things. So yeah, this one, it does have a little bit of it almost seems as if it's trying to kind of bridge the gap between the sort of more modern craft beers, if you like, and the more kind of traditional English ones. So maybe this is intended to be a gateway for the more traditional beer drinkers to get into something a little bit more crafty. And considering the history of this brewery, that would sort of make sense, wouldn't it? So yeah, the aroma of this one, the malty side of the beer, is quite interesting. That's where I think most of my interest kind of goes in this. But you guys know from watching the channel, I'm a malt head, you know, it's just how it goes. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, you do get a wee touch of earthiness out of this beer. You do get some nice kind of big floral aromaticity in this as well. The hops that are in this are all relatively high alpha acid. I mean, you know, Nelson Sauvigne's about 16%, Citra's about 14%, Lemon Drop, I actually don't know what Lemon Drop is, but I know that the Dr. Rudy is between 10 and 12%. I think Lemon Drop must be at least 10% as well, so they're all quite big high alpha acid hops in this. But it doesn't smell overly bitter, this one, so it's not really, it doesn't strike me as if it's going to be such a hop forward beer. But yeah, you've got a nice bit of grassiness to this one as well, and the way the fruits are all coming together in this is quite interesting too. But yeah, you do get a little bit of you do get a nice little bit of zestiness out of this beer. The green side of the hops for me, it's got a good balance between the earthiness, the floral notes, and the grassiness. There's not any one of them sort of stands out all that much, if that makes sense. They all seem to be working together, kind of you know, homeostatically or whatever. They all seem to kind of have a nice balance, if you like. That's definitely fair. Yeah, but a nice smelling beer. On the fruity side of things, it's actually, I do find it quite lemony. It's the lemon drop that really strikes me about this one. You do get a wee touch of mango from the Citra on this. You do find a little bit of a more oily mango a little bit further back in the nose, but yeah, nice and kind of lemony and zesty. There's a wee touch of lime to this one as well, which I do suspect will be coming from Citra. Citra can give you lemon and limey notes depending on what you mix it with, but the lemon drop is giving you a little bit of that. I don't get so much of the melon that you can sometimes get from that, right enough. But yeah, the aromas that come out of this beer are definitely very, very nice. The Nelson Sauvignon for me, I don't find it overly obvious in the aroma here, and the main reason for that would be that the notes, you do get almost a bit of a gooseberry note in this, and Nelson Sauvignon, you obviously, I would associate it more with a kind of straight up white grape. So yeah, for me, mangoes on the fruity side of things, quite an oily mango at that, a good bit of lemony zestiness to it, a wee bit of lime, and just a little touch of gooseberry also, which is quite interesting. So yeah, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it, but I think this is a really quite nice smelling beer, I have to say. It's quite an interesting one. It certainly made me think a little bit. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we go on. This one is the Metric, formerly known as Pint, a 3.9% English bitter apparently from Manchester Marble Brewing Company in Manchester in England. Thank you again to Adam for this one. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, I have to say that is pretty nice. I like this. Yeah, I can see why this is quite a popular beer. I'll say that straight away. And it is interesting. It is kind of... if I was blind tasting this, I would probably think this was an English pale ale, to be honest with you. And I have to say, you know, when it comes to the English traditional beers, I'm not overly sure where the kind of the main difference between the pale ale and the bitter, to be quite honest with you. I don't know the technicalities of the brew. Harry Meadows over at Harry of Blue Nose Beer Reviews would be the one to tell you about that. I have to say I like this. This is a really nice one. It is, as I say, it strikes me, it reminds me quite a bit actually of the two beers that I mentioned earlier, the Nunes Hamsong Brewery Baderu Bitter and the Örebro Bitter from Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro here in Sweden. Those have been the best English bitters that I've had so far, but this is the first English brewed one I think that I can say that I actually really quite enjoy. I have to say, so if you do know any English bitters that are similar to this, you know, let me know those in the comments section below, because I think, to be honest, I think it is a style that I need to maybe open my mind to a little bit more, and kind of maybe just get a bit of experience in. It's maybe kind of like sour beers, because I never used to like sour beers. Then came the Belgian Lambics, yeah. But yeah, this is pretty damn solid. So thumbs up to Marble for this one. It kind of reminds me of this. It makes me think of the Northern Hellas that I had from Donzoko a few videos back. You know, that's becoming a staple beer. So this is definitely a nice kind of staple one to have for you here on the channel. Just going to check, because they say not to put the sediment in this. Yeah, there's not really any sediment coming out of it. Is there actually any? Doesn't look like it, to be honest. But yeah, this is very, very nicely done. What I will say about this is that the malt base does have a bit of that grainy English bitter type quality to it, which is, you know, kind of what you'd expect when they say on the website it's a bitter. So yeah, straight away with this beer, you do get that pale malty quality, and that just blankets the middle of your tongue. I'm pretty certain on this one that it is English malt that they're using in this. Probably the Munich, pardon me, the Munich and the Carapils in this one will probably be German. I would guess Weiermann from Bamberg, but the pale malt in this is most certainly English. You can tell that just from the graininess of the malt base in this beer. But yeah, I like how it pieces together. But yeah, on top of that, you can feel the more that you drink of this beer, in the middle of your palate, in the middle third of your tongue, you will get a nice, more oily, kind of biscuity type quality coming out of this one. It does have a wee bit of a McVitie's digestive kind of vibe to it, which I do quite like. You do get a wee bit caramel almost in the very centre of your palate, and if it's got a bit of carapils in it, then that would make sense. But yeah, you get a wee bit of that sweet caramel right in the centre of your palate, and as you move further out from that centre of your tongue, it's got a wee bit more of a kind of oily, biscuity note, if that makes sense. But yeah, quite a McVitie's digestive quality there. But as you move, if you go to the centre of your palate, then just gradually move back and go in a straight line, you can feel that sort of crispness, which I would be guessing would be from carapils in there. You do get a little bit of that out of this beer. As I've told you in the channel before, Pilsner malt is really annoying to describe because it's more of a mouthfeel element, I think, than an actual flavour. It really just gives the beer this really kind of crisp quality, if you like, and you do get that in this beer, particularly in the back third of the palate. So in the back third of the palate, you've still got that nice kind of smooth graininess there. The bread almost just feels slightly thicker, I think, that sort of bready base, but you do get more of the graininess out of it. Further forward on that front third of the back third of your palate, sorry, you get more of the kind of Pilsner crispness, but then further behind that, it is more of a you know, it is definitely more of a kind of graininess there, and that's where you get the real grainy edge of the English malts coming out in this one. So yeah, the malt base for me is really quite nice, and I'm guessing the yeast is probably contributing to the kind of graininess that this beer has as well. I do find that the more you let this beer kind of progress into the aftertaste, it gets a little bit of a woody undertone to it. And again, that's maybe something to do with the yeast. But I certainly like this one. That grainy element that it has and the slight biscuity note, I do quite like. It's definitely, it just feels a little bit cleaner, this one, I think, compared to the other English bitters I've had in the past. I mean, I've tried, you know, the London Pride and stuff like that, and it's, you know, it's okay, but again, it's just a style that I hadn't really taken to that much. But I can see the appeal of putting the New World hops in them, because this beer does work very, very well. So yeah, I can see why this one has gone down so well. It does seem like a beer that's good at bridging the gap, if you like, between the old world beers and the new world beers, if that makes sense. So yeah, I like this one. Thumbs up to Marble again. So hoppy side of the beer then, let's focus on that. We've covered the malt base, I think, as much as we need to. So yeah, in the back corners of the palate, there's a little touch of earthiness to this one. As you move further forward, you do get a nice little bit of so there is a slightly herbal quality to this one, which is quite interesting, because it is New World hops that are in this, and normally the herbal quality is something that I would associate with the the Kent Goldings and the other kind of hops and things like that from England, the Auroras and stuff like that. Yeah, it's quite interesting that it's interesting this beer does have that herbal quality. Could they be using an English hop as the bittering hop in this one? Although in fairness, the other thing you have to remember is that with these hops, Nelson Sauvin, for example, everyone associates that with the soft white greeny grape characters, but if you add that as a bittering hop in the early stage, it's got a hell of a spiciness to it, and that's, you do feel as you go further forward on the corners of this, on the sides of your tongue with this beer, you do get more kind of floral aromaticity out of this one, which is quite interesting. I do like that about this beer. So yeah, I certainly do like that about how this one goes. It's got a nice balance between the malts and the hops, but definitely this one does have a good bit of spiciness to it. So I'm wondering if that's the Dr. Rudy that's doing that. These New Zealand hops can have a bit of a spicy kick to them, but they do have, if you use them in the latter half hour of the boil, the last half hour, they give you more of an oily fruitiness, and you get that out of this as well. But as you go round the very front curve of the palate, the beer makes quite a sharp transition from being quite big and bitter, if you like, to being a little bit more lighter and grassy. As I say, on that front third of the tongue you do get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer, and this is where it gets quite interesting actually. Because yeah, the fruity side of this one I think is really nice as well. So at the back of that front third of your tongue you've got a wee touch of a kind of darker grapefruit. Could be more of a passion fruit, to be honest with you, but in fairness it does have that really dark pungent flavour that you get from the grapefruit. But as you move further forward from that, it starts to get a wee bit more kind of lighter and mango-y, if that makes sense, and that'll be the Citra. I do think the Citra is the one that's giving it these kind of grapefruity qualities, to be quite honest with you, because Citra is a very complex hop. It can have grapefruit, it can have mango, it can have softer tropical fruits as well, and it can give you a bit of lemon, lime and gooseberry sort of thing. So it's a very... Citra is a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde hop. It can do loads of stuff. So yeah, I think it's the Citra is giving you that darker element, that darker grapefruity element to the flavour. Mango's in front of that. Then as you move a little bit further forward beyond that, you do have... it's got a wee bit of a more oily kind of character in there. It's a little bit of a sort of limey. It has a wee bit of a kind of limey base to it, gooseberry-like. I think this is the Nelson Sauvin kind of showing its head, if you like. So yeah, it has got a wee bit of a kind of limey quality to it. There is a wee bit of a... You do get the kind of lemony zestiness. If you move right to the tip of your tongue, you get a good bit of the lemon zesty quality, and I think that's the lemon drop in there. But I think the Nelson Sauvin in this one, rather than being white and green grapey initially, it is a little bit more oily and gooseberry-like. But you will, the further you go into the aftertaste, you do get a wee bit more of a kind of white green grapey flavour out of it. I've never noticed Nelson Sauvin being quite as oily before as I have in this beer. So the Nelson Sauvin character in this beer is quite oily in my mind. So yeah, it is quite interesting just how this beer goes together. The fruity character in this one for me is really nice. Darker grapefruits as you'd expect, lighter juicier mango, then a wee bit of a more oily kind of citrusy note, and a wee bit of that zesty note on the front of the palate there. And the further you go into the aftertaste, it does become more lemon and zesty. So I think the lemon drop is coming out a bit more later in the aftertaste. Yeah, the Nelson Sauvin's being a little bit more oily, and then behind that, a little bit of lighter mango and some nice kind of darker grapefruity qualities to the beer as well. So yeah, it gets a thumbs up from me, this one. I like how this goes together. I think we've described the flavour profile quite nicely as it stands. So yeah, if I was blind tasting this, I don't know if I would pick out that this was an English bitter, to be quite honest with you. The malt base, I think, is the one thing that makes it an English bitter, but in a lot of other ways it comes across as more kind of like paleo-like, to be honest with you. And as I say, I'm a bit hazy on where, excuse the pun, I'm a bit hazy on where the kind of fine line between the bitters and the paleos would begin when it comes to the English traditional beers, but I can see exactly why this is a popular beer, and I certainly like it actually. I'll need to make sure that I do a sort of on-site tasting of this one when I make it back to the Marble Arch Inn, probably with Peter or with Adam actually. So I'll need to sort that with them at some point. But yeah, this is a really nice beer, this one. So again, thank you to Adam for making this review possible. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, what are we going to say about that? I'd say that it's kind of the bottom end of midboard. I find this a very light and drinkable beer, to be honest with you. It comes across as very clean in a lot of ways. And for me, that is one of the things, that's a bit of a strange thing for me with an English beer that you might consider more traditional, because the cask, I've never been a great fan of the cask beer, at least at the temperature. I've never really liked the kind of warm cask beer. I've always been more a fan of the way the Germans conditioned their beer, to be honest with you, a bit lighter and a bit a bit lighter, crisper, and then colder, to be honest, as well. So yeah, I've never been such a fan of that, and I find this one really light, crisp, and clean almost, which is sort of the opposite of what I'm used to with the English cask beers that I've had before. So yeah, this one, I think it's fair to describe this one as top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. Carbonation is quite crisp in this one. The mouthfeel overall is quite wet and quite clean, like I was saying. In terms of IBUs, I think this one's got a fair little bit of IBU too. I'd be tempted to say this might have about 40 or 50 IBUs. Could be even be more than that, I might be wrong. I mean, the New Zealand hops have got a hell of a kind of bitiness to them with the alpha acids and things, so that's an interesting point about this beer as well. So yeah, nice little bit of a bitter kick to it. The malty base is quite, pardon me, is quite smooth in this one. It's got a good little degree of sweetness, and you've got some nice little juicy tropical fruit notes to it, but it also has a wee bit of a more oily citrusy zesty quality as well. So I do like how it goes together, to be honest with you. It's got a nice composition to it, this beer. So yeah, this could change my opinion a little bit about the English bitters. Do let me know what you think about this. This one strikes me, if I was tasting this blind, I would probably think this was a pale ale, to be honest with you. I think probably I would lean more towards the kind of pale ale sort of thing. So let me know what you guys think about that, especially if you're watching from England. I'd be curious to know what your take on the whole English bitter versus pale ale type thing is. So yeah, for me it's probably the different types of malts and different yeasts and things, I would think, that define the bitter and the pale ale. But yeah, a really interesting beer, this one that has definitely made me think, and I guess you can also say that this one is a bit of a staple when it comes to Manchester too. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you to Adam for making this review possible. Thank you to you guys for watching. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Manchester Marble Brewery. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point in hopefully the fairly near future. But yeah, this has been a really interesting one to review. Check out my social media, check out my other English beer reviews, check out Adam over at Mersey Beers, and I will catch you guys very soon. There's more beers to come from the Adam box here on the channel, but in the meantime I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will catch you guys later. Slàinte, Skål, cheers, make sure you check out Manchester Marble Brewery and Adam over at Mersey Beers. Thanks.